From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 9 o'clock news.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger. Police have located and issued citations to the driver believed responsible for driving into Mount View Cemetery over the weekend and damaging dozens of veterans' graves. Lieutenant Brandon Woolley says a single vehicle crash caused that damage. Woolley tells Q2 the driver, 30-year-old Brad Dugas of Billings, was not injured and left the scene. Police have cited Dugas for reckless driving, failure to remain at the scene of an accident, and failure to give notice of the crash. Cemetery Director Chris Waite says 29 headstones are left damaged. It was initially thought that 32 were damaged, but 3 were just covered by a tree. Waite says the Veterans Administration will help with replacements. Crews cleaned up mostly the day of the accident.
We wanted to make the site safe. Immediately, that was our first concern, was just to get the debris out and the broken shards out. And so we called in our crew right after the accident, and they were here most of Sunday, hauling out the pieces and then taking them down to a storage facility so we could kind of sort through the damage there.
Waite says he does not have an estimate when the headstones will arrive, but he says late October is about the time when cold weather will shut down repairs for this year. Q2's David J. will have more on this story tonight on our 10 o'clock news. Another COVID-19 related death reported here in Yellowstone County today. The latest victim, a woman in her 60s. The state is also now reporting the death of a Bighorn County man in his 70s. We told you about that yesterday. Total deaths across Montana have now reached 165. Health authorities also report 214 new confirmed active cases, but the overall count has dropped by more than 300. Both Yellowstone and Cascade counties saw a decline of more than 100 active cases overnight. COVID-19 cases in Montana schools have more than doubled in a week. The state health department released a weekly update on case numbers in schools late today. University cases more than doubled to 204. The University of Montana reported 72, Montana State 59. Total number of cases for students and staff went from 194 up to 488. 85 high school cases were reported, 74 elementary school cases and 37 middle school cases. The numbers released today are through last Friday. Yellowstone County numbers climbed from 28 to 111, but that includes 45 cases under investigation. After months of waiting, a decision has finally been made in Breonna Taylor's death. No one will be charged in her killing. A grand jury did decide that one of the police officers involved in the shooting of Taylor will face criminal charges, but not for her death. After the announcement, protests broke out in Louisville and cities across the country. CBS News correspondent Jerika Duncan has the latest from Louisville.
No justice! No peace!
Protesters took to the streets after a grand jury charged one Louisville officer, but not for the shooting death of Breonna Taylor.
They're basically saying it's legal to murder black people in the streets or in their sleep. It's sad to say, but we used to it, them getting away with murder.
Several protesters were arrested amid some clashes, and Kentucky's governor ordered the state National Guard to protect city infrastructure after Wednesday's announcement. A grand jury charged fired officer Brett Hankison with 3 counts of wanton endangerment for firing into the homes of Taylor's neighbors during a March 13th narcotics investigation. No drugs were ever found in Taylor's home.
The decision before my office as the special prosecutor in this case was not to decide if the loss of Miss Taylor's life was a tragedy. The answer to that question is unequivocally yes.
The panel brought no charges against any of the 3 officers in connection with the 26-year-old emergency room technician's death.
It's the wrong decision. They only mentioned one cop. There's a whole string of people that are at fault for this tragic incident.
Taylor was shot 6 times in the hallway of her apartment.
She's in the sanctity of her home, the place where you are expected to be safe.
Taylor's boyfriend, who has said he mistook the officers for intruders, opened fire first, hitting an officer in the leg. If convicted, Hankison faces up to 15 years behind bars. Jerika Duncan, CBS News, Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville's mayor says the FBI is still conducting its own investigation, which the Department of Justice will review to determine whether there were any violation of federal laws, including civil rights violations. Well, today marked the first of 3 days of public ceremonies for the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The vacancy left on the court has ignited a political battle less than 6 weeks from Election Day. Here's Deborah Alfarone.
Mourners came to the U.S. Supreme Court to pay their respects to the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Among them, former President Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and Vice President Mike Pence.
She meant so much to so many of us.
She really led an impactful life.
At a private memorial service in the Great Hall of the Supreme Court Wednesday morning, the history-making legal icon was honored for her work pursuing equal rights for all Americans.
This was Justice Ginsburg's life's work, to insist that the Constitution deliver on its promise, that we, the people, would include all the people.
Her 483 majority, concurring, and dissenting opinions will steer the court for decades.
As the nation continues to honor the legacy of the late Justice Ginsburg, President Trump is preparing to name her successor.
The person I'll be putting up is highly qualified, totally brilliant. You'll see on Saturday who that is. I can't imagine why a Democrat wouldn't vote for this person.
President Trump appears to have the support from enough Senate Republicans to get a vote on his nominee, despite opposition from the Democrats. Sources tell CBS News federal appeals court judge Amy Coney Barrett is a leading contender after the president met with her twice this week at the White House.
Women's rights as it relates to everything from medical health care is going to be gone.
2020 Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden called the rush to push through a nominee an abuse of power, and he called on voters to make their voices heard. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, the Supreme Court.
Well, here in Montana, the state Supreme Court has issued another ruling in favor of solar power developers and against the State Public Service Commission. This time it affects a proposed solar power project just north of Billings. In a unanimous ruling, the High Court says the PSC did not follow state and federal law when it set contract terms for a proposed 80-megawatt solar power plant. The ruling upholds a lower court order from 2019, which said Montana Sun should get a fair contract to sell power to Northwestern Energy. Montana Sun says contract terms set by the PSC not only violated state and federal law on renewable power projects, but also made it financially impossible for the project to go forward. Northwestern and the PSC had appealed the lower court ruling to the state Supreme Court. The High Court says Montana Sun should get the contract terms spelled out by the state district court's decision. Well, it's well documented reading to children, even newborn babies, helps boost brain development. So for parents with the tiniest patients at St. Vincent Healthcare, why not pick up a book or 20 and reach a goal of reading at least 30,000 words to their new babies who are fighting to survive? Here's Q2's Mitch Legge with the story.
Born just 27 days ago, Barrett and Declan Brown have spent their entire lives thus far in the neonatal intensive care unit at St. Vincent Healthcare. Thanks to the NICU Readathon, the twins already have a boost to their brains from the power of books.
We know that evidence tells us that reading to your infant early and reading to your children early and often is super, super important. Our goal is hopefully that our preemie babies hear about 30,000 words before 3.
The Readathon at St. Vincent's is a part of a national effort to encourage parents of children in the NICU to read to their kids. For the twins' parents, Jamie and Tyler, their reading time offers a welcome break from the monotony of hospital life and the lack of family visitors due to COVID-19 restrictions.
It's been a long journey, like she said, 27 days, and it's about the big difference you get, because it gets pretty routine. You know, you come change diapers, and they're still pretty young, so they need a lot of sleep, so they just sleep in most of the time, and we get a little bit of time to hold them, and during that time it breaks it up, like you say.
The couple said that the Readathon really lit a fire to read to their boys. The go-to book for the family is The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle, one of the many books on the shelf at St. V's. This is the first year St. V's has participated in the National Readathon. Staff say it's increased incentive for parents to read to their kids.
Families have been so bought into it. And so I guess everybody needs a little bit of a contest, and it kind of breaks up the monotony of COVID. Like, not many people get to visit. You feel kind of lonely. It's not what you've expected to have a baby in the NICU. So this is kind of a cool way for families in the NICU to feel like there's something else besides obsessing about a sick baby or obsessing about nobody's able to come visit my baby.
In Billings, Mitch Legge, MTN News.
Thanks, Mitch. The twins are currently on feeding tubes, but have recently started eating on their own, and the doctors tell us that's a good sign that they may get to go home soon. Well, you've undoubtedly heard a lot about the two candidates vying to be Montana's next governor, but a little later we take a look at their running mates. And the MTN News at 9 continues, and Bob McGuire will join us with a look at the forecast next, which does include a warning for parts of eastern Montana.